Good afternoon and welcome to your finest television in Zambia, which is KBN TV. And I believe every time you get to see me on set at 14 hours, you know what we're talking about and you know what type of a show it is. Well, this is Labor Matters on KBN TV, channel 279 on DSTV, 27 GoTV 102 Topstar Decoder, and we're also live on our Facebook page. So today we're looking at an interesting topic, which is performance management and productivity. Such an interesting topic. Please don't move away from where you are. Make sure you stay glued to KBN TV as we get to learn more about this topic of discussion for today. My name is Patricia Chilamikwa and I will be your host for this exciting topic. And I must make mention that I'm not alone in the studios. I am joined by Mr. Owen Katongo Kabanda, who is a management and leadership advisor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm okay.
Thank you.
Sure. And I must make mention, Mr. Kabanda, that people are enjoying this program.
Thank you.
Looking at the views on our social media, this is our KBN TV Facebook page, we are having a lot of views and a lot of comments from the viewers. How do you feel that this show has a lot of engagements?
It's actually very gratifying to see because, as you know, this topic is not, it's more on the educational side than on entertainment. So usually programs that are of entertainment nature, you find that there's more engagement. So it's really very gratifying to see that people can still spend time to engage with us on topics of this nature, which focuses on labor matters.
Sure, and today we're looking at an interesting topic, performance management and productivity. To start with, are there laws that pertain to performance management?
Yes, so it's important to understand that when you are looking at performance itself in an institution, and we will try to look at this matter from maybe two angles. That is from the small and medium enterprises as well as the big institutions. From the small enterprises, it's also important for them to understand that there are things that should guide how they operate. The bigger institutions is the same thing. So when it comes to the labor laws, we have, for instance, the Employment Code Act number 3 of 2019. It is the current law that guides how employers and employees should behave. And it's important that business owners, supervisors, managers, human resource practitioners, as well as employees themselves, they spend time understanding that piece of legislation. When you look at the Employment Code, just starting from you go to Section 3 of the Employment Code, there you will find, it will define for you who an employee is, who the employer is. For instance, it's very interesting when we talk to supervisors and managers that, like we have mentioned in the previous episodes, that supervisors and managers, CEOs, they are also considered as employers. So it's important that they understand their role when it comes to performance management. Under the same section, it also outlines for you what employment relationship is. So you have an exchange. The employee gives a service, the employer pays for that service, so the employer pays a wage. So that means that in that service, how the employee gives that service, which is defined in Section 3, that itself is linked to performance. Because when that service is not given to the expected standards, the employer will have the right to say, no, Baba Mokangiwa, please, the door is open. When you look at Section 23, and you go to the second schedule in the Employment Code, there you'll also find that as part of the contents of the contract, a written contract, it is a requirement that the nature of work, okay, the nature of work that the employee is going to do, it's also clearly defined. So when you're starting work, the employer should sit down with you and tell you, look, this is your workplace, this will be the salary. I know a lot of times we just rush to the salary and as employees and forget about everything. But it's important that the employee understands what the contract entails, the starting date, but more importantly, there's a component that speaks to the nature of work, meaning what work are you going to be doing. So in many cases, companies, what they do is to work out a job description, and in that job description to tell you exactly what you'll be doing on a daily basis or weekly basis or monthly basis or the entire period of your work. So what you are then looking at under that section is the importance of clearly defining the duties. And where there is no job description, the employer, in this case the supervisor, will be giving the person duties. So that in itself tells you the importance of performance and performance management. It is supposed to be part of even the contract. When you go further under section 52, under section 52 of the Employment Code, you will find provisions that speak to the fact that when the employer wants to terminate the contract, the employer requires to give a reason. We have been talking about these things in the previous episodes. What that means is that one of the reasons, so the law under section 52 will tell you that the valid reasons should be related to the employee's capacity or performance, or the employee's conduct or behavior or operational requirements of the company. And we tackled those things in the previous episode. So the key issue there is that there is mention of capacity or performance. What that means is that the law, there is an expectation that as an employer, remember we said the employer includes the supervisor and the managers. As the employer, you should have sat down and said, this is what I expect from you as an employee. And those things need to be very clear. When should this be done? In terms of quantity, in terms of quality, in terms of time. So that now starts to help the employer to manage that aspect of the employee's performance. And when the employee is not performing, that's why in the previous episodes we were talking about the disciplinary process, where the person could be charged for non-performance or failure to perform according to certain standards. So performance is a big issue in terms of the provisions of the law, and that's why businesses and institutions cannot just look away and say we will do things without considering what the law is saying, because if you have not paid attention as an employer, it also puts you in an awkward situation. When tomorrow you say, no, Patricia is not performing. She's not performing in terms of what? So if the employer has not made things clear, then it also makes it difficult for them to simply wake up and fire the employee. The law also under section 95 in the Employment Code, Act number 3 of 2019, when you go and read the law under that section, it provides for key policies that should be in the company. Mm-hmm. Now, the law says the employer or the undertaking shall have policies in place, including a performance management policy. That is instruction. It's instructive. It does not mean it's a good thing to have. Like when we are dealing with some businesses, we'll try and put that in. The law requires you to have a performance management policy in place. The importance of that is that this allows the employer to be fair in the way they are managing staff. Because sometimes you have a situation where people are just being told to jump right, left, center. There should be some level of consistency in terms of how employees should be managed. There should be direction. And so the law therefore requires that you have in place a performance management policy in place, which would outline for you even how things should be done, how performance will be measured, how the targets will be set, including how performance will be either rewarded or punished if somebody is failing to perform, or even how people could be taken for further training. So under the Employment Code, there are those provisions. We also have other laws around minimum, the statutory instruments around minimum wages. Though they don't speak direct to performance, they speak about some conditions, for instance, for drivers and all these other ones who are under minimum wages. That affects, for instance, motivation, the environment. So it's also important that apart from the provisions of the employment code, you as a business look into all the other provisions, the occupation. You can talk about for those colleagues who are in civil service. There is a law around the civil servants and how they should operate. So there are all these provisions that actually guide when it comes to performance. Even just when you go to Industrial and Labour Relations Act, though it focuses on unions and so on, you find that some of the problems that come, which the grievances and so on that the institutions and unions and management will be fighting over are things to do, for instance, with conditions of service, hours of work, the way targets are set. So it is important that there is some consideration that even such collective agreement, for instance, they are speaking to how performance will be properly managed and measured in an institution.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
If you're just joining us, you're watching Labour Matters on KBN TV, and today we are looking at an interesting topic, which is performance management and productivity. Now, Mr. Kabanda, on today's topic, maybe you can try or begin by defining our key terms. What is a strategic plan?
All right, so strategic planning, basically this is a process. So it's a process of setting your goals, usually the long-term goals. So for a business, when a business is starting, we'll try to simplify things. Sometimes you're starting as an entrepreneur, you're all by yourself, but over time your business could grow, medium enterprise and so on. It is important that there is some level of planning for the future. So for big companies, as we mentioned at the beginning, a lot of big companies have strategic plans in place. So the strategic planning is basically a process which helps you to look at where the institution should be going. In the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, where do we want to go as an institution? So that process requires that there is concerted effort from everybody. You sit down and start to look at the businesses, the external factors, what are we dealing with. So actually that process takes a bit of time. Sometimes we hear people say, no, within 1 week I will provide for you a strategic plan. When we hear such things, I'm yet to see a strategic plan which is done in a week's time. Usually you want to sit down as a business or as an institution and look at where exactly do we want to go. You then start looking at what is our mandate. So if, for instance, it's a government institution, or it's just a business, or a subsidiary, for instance, where the mother company, for instance, as a simplified version, is in another country, and they have come and set up a business here, what mandate are they here to do? If you're an NGO, what's your mandate? So there's that process where you start looking at your mandate, you start looking at the environment in which you're operating. What will be these factors? You start looking at your strengths, your weaknesses. There's all this analysis that actually takes place. So the key issue is that during that process of strategic planning, you are making sure that things become very clear in terms of where you want to go as an institution or as a business. Because it's important that there's clarity of thought in terms of where you want to go as a business. When things are not very clear, that means it also creates confusion for the performance management itself, because then people don't know what exactly they're working towards. And it's important that we make certain things clear. This process usually requires that you have looked at all the factors. You've looked at your environment, you've looked at your mandate. As an institution, you're looking at even your resources. Do you have enough resources for things that you want to do? How do we deal with all the risks that could be there? In terms of operational risks, in terms of financial risks, people risks. You have to sit down and look at all these challenges that you could have as a business, and then start to also put in place some mitigating measures, how we are going to handle those problems when they come. So that process actually requires a lot of thinking. And as a business, whether you're a small business, it's important to sit down and look at everything in totality, and then now you see how this will link now with actual performance management.
So how does it relate to performance management in workplaces?
Yeah, so because now you have worked out the the plan in terms of where you want to go. So what starts to happen? And again, these things that we're talking about, sometimes a business can make a strategic plan internally. So management will be given permission, they sit down, they start to do these things internally. Sometimes you bring on board a consultant. Could be individual consultant, or it could be a consulting firm. And they will help you now to come up with the strategic objectives, okay? So you are saying in the next 5 years, this is what we want to achieve. And as you work on those strategic objectives, you are saying year 1 we'll do this, year 2 we'll do this, year 3 we'll do that. So now for you to get to that which you want to achieve every year, you will then need to have now a performance management system in place, or you have to now start looking at performance management. So how are you now going to manage the performance of the entire institution? That is at a corporate level. Then how are you going to manage the performance of the departments? And then below the department is the sections or the individuals now. Because on performance management, you are now saying, for us to know where we are going, we need to make sure we are able to track our progress. And each department, therefore, has to make sure that their goals, they should be aligned to the strategic objectives of the institution. Because if this does not happen, you can have a very wonderful book. And we see this in a number of companies where you have this very thick book which was done as a strategic plan by the consultants, and then they leave it. Once the consultant leaves, it's gathering dust there. The departments, they are making their own plans, they are running with their own objectives, the individuals are doing their own objectives, and now we have a situation where there's no coherence between what the institution wants to achieve versus what the departments and the individuals are doing. So it's important that there's some thought around how you make sure that how you're managing performance is aligned to the strategic objectives of the institution.
Amazing.
Yeah.
To our viewers, if you have any questions, comments, or contributions, please do text us. There's a number which is right on your TV screen. Drop us a text, or you can go on our Facebook page, which is KBN TV. Drop us those text messages, and we'll read them right here. Now, Mr. Kabanda, can you explain why strategic planning and performance management, these two aspects, are so vital in the workplaces?
Yeah, so definitely, like we've said, one of the things that we've seen that start to happen is a situation where, for instance, where there is no strategic plan, and like we've said, this can be at a small, medium enterprise level, or it could be at a higher level. One, for companies that don't have, it makes it very difficult for them to navigate through, for instance, some challenges. So that is for smaller companies. For big institutions, sometimes they have strategic plans, sometimes they don't have. If they don't have, usually we advise that sit down with the consultants to help you. For those that have, again, having a strategic plan which is gathering dust, it is of no use. There are also those companies where you have a strategic plan and yet certain things have changed, yet you have not changed or revised the strategic plan. So all those three, it's important that there is some thought around it, because the importance of strategic planning and performance management is that when you are running an institution or a business, you need to know where you are going, and you need to be in a space where you can measure the progress you're making towards that which you want to achieve. So just as an example, if your plan is to get to Kitwe, okay, and this is the importance of strategic planning. If your plan is to reach Kitwe, you are coming from Lusaka, it's a very simple example. You need to know, how are you going to get to Kitwe? Are you going by bus? Are you using private transport? Are you using maybe by plane? Or how are you getting there? When do you need to get there? You then need to start looking at the time. So there are all these factors. Then you need to now say, what resources do I actually have? Now, that is, let's say, at a personal level. From the business perspective, If you're saying, I want to be a supplier, I'll be supplying this and that to the mines, or you have won a tender where you are doing construction of a road, for instance. This road needs to be done in the next 3 years. So the time is already set. So then as a business, you are sitting down and say, where do we get the resources? Where is our gravel coming from? Where is the bitumen coming from? When can it arrive? So if you don't plan, that now becomes a problem. If you are in a supply business, whatever type of business you are in, you need to be in a space where you can sit down and start making those specific plans, because then it affects how you are delivering as a business or as an institution. So because a lot of works that are done or a lot of business is time bound, if you don't make your plans, then you find that by the time you are getting something, maybe it has lost its value. For instance, now that there's a show going on, if your business, the plan was to get something sell at the show, yet you didn't plan for these things in advance, by the time you are getting your supply, which you wanted to sell at the show would have finished. Mm-hmm. If there are customers that you are targeting, so without a plan, it makes it very, very difficult for you to actually know when you need to do something. And this is what leads to a lot of losses sometimes in business. And for those institutions which are not in profit making, for instance, it affects service delivery. Because you have not sat down to make plans where you needed to do certain things. If an institution that is there to just give a service, you didn't plan when the people should come, all of a sudden you find that you have no people that you needed, or all of a sudden you find that the materials that you needed, that material is not there. So strategic planning, or planning in this sense, and managing the performance, it becomes extremely important for you to run a successful institution or a successful business, so that you can now tell that, okay, these are the resources, this is where we are going in the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and with where we are going as a business, we need now this kind of people, we need this amount of money, because sometimes you can also be excited, you hire people, and all of a sudden, maybe those people are coming earlier than you needed to have them. So at that point now, they become a cost to your business. Mm-hmm. So there is all these things that you have to start looking at. Otherwise, if you don't look at the plans, you don't look at the timing, it becomes a big challenge. If you are in a mine, for instance, it's an open pit kind of mining, and you have not procured certain things that you needed to have for you to be able to do the mine, and it's an open pit, the rain season comes, are you going to continue? So if you have not made plans, this is why we are saying, when it comes to planning and managing performance, these things have to go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. Because it's from those plans that you make, then you can now start aligning the people and checking, and when I say people, I mean also the departments that you have, and making sure that they are doing the work in line with what was planned.
You're right. Amazing. Yeah. Just a follow-up from what you just said. How does strategic planning play a role in aligning individual and team performance with the overall organization's objectives?
Yes, so what happens for companies, I'll take an example of bigger institutions. Okay? So in a bigger institution, what happens, you sit down, so you have a strategic plan. And that strategic plan, if you are coming up with it, like I mentioned, it could be individuals within the company, you come together, they need to be presented to the board for approval, or you have brought in a consultant. Now, what then happens is, once that strategic plan is approved, in that strategic plan, it will have strategic objectives. That means, for instance, on finances, what do we need to achieve on the financial side? Okay, so you'll be looking at the monies, when should this money come in, so you are making your projections nicely, operational wise, how do we increase our efficiency, what systems are we going to be using as an institution, are we using more of computers, are we bringing in a system, or if you are out there, depending on the kind of business you're doing, Are you going to have a certain machine that you'll be operating? So you're looking at all your operations within the company. You will look at various other areas around your business. Now, those who also have the timelines. So year 1, what is it that you should achieve? Year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, depending on your strategic plan. Some plans will be for 3 years, others 5 years, or whatever period. Now, how does this link with the performance management? So what starts to happen now, those objectives will be considered as corporate objectives, meaning that they are objectives that the institution should achieve. Now, on top, below the corporate objectives, we should now sit down and say, okay, this department and this department and this department, what are they doing? And this is the importance of doing this kind of exercises, because now we are saying, human resource, what should you do in order for us to achieve these objectives? The HR should hire the people at the right time, at the right price in terms of salaries, because there's labor costing. So even when should these people come? So because if you brought people earlier than you needed them, then it becomes a cost. If you bring them later, it is of no use, it will have no impact on the operations. So HR will sit down and start looking at how they, even also when these people come, there is now issues of staff retention, staff welfare. If you have hired people and then everybody is leaving, again, it affects your operation. This is why this planning and linking the performance becomes very important. You go to finance. What should finance be doing? If you're running a bigger business, what should finance be doing? What kind of revenues are we expecting? How are we going to be spending? Who is managing what? You go to operations, depending on your business again. You can go to the technical team, the department. You can go to the legal department. What should they be doing? The marketing side. So those, for us to achieve those corporate objectives, they need to be cascaded down to the departments. So every department should then be looking at those strategic objectives and saying, okay, what is our part? Each department should have its part. Otherwise, if a department, for instance, there is nothing that is doing in line with the overall objectives of the institution, then why is it there? This is what sometimes leads to even those things we talked about, redundancy. Maybe you don't need it. You should take it out. Because every department you have should be speaking to the overall objective of the institution. They should be contributing to the achievement of the overall objectives. So at the departmental level, each department will take what it needs to be doing. And at the end of the day, the objectives now, from that level of the department, you will now sit down and, so the individuals now, so it's like a pyramid, to simplify matters. The individuals now should now be looking at, what should I do? So let's say this is a TV station. What is the overall objective of this TV station? What is it that they want to achieve in the next 2-3 years? How do they deal with competition? How do they do this? Then you're now sitting down and saying, okay, what sections do we have? The news section, the entertainment section, the what, according to what the station wants to achieve. Then what will now the individuals, in this case Patricia and John and Mary, and what are they going to be doing? So that's why it's important to align all activities so that each individual who is within the department, you actually find that they have work to do. Because sometimes you can have a situation where we have people, they are in the department, and what they are doing every day, reporting and sipping coffee. Okay? So it's important that there is clarity of thought in terms of how you are linking the plans of the institution or your business to the departmental plans, to the individual plans. Because the danger that is there actually when you are not managing these things, and I will explain this, there is something we call presenteeism. Presenteeism simply means that the person every day is reporting for work. They are present, but in terms of productivity, which is the issue we are talking about now, productivity-wise, it's not there. But they are there every day, and they are sitting on your payroll. Remember, this person is not working. but you are paying every month. So that presentism kills productivity. So as a business, it's important that it's not just and we have to understand the complexity of these things, because a lot of our systems, for instance, I'll talk about even the HR systems or payroll systems, the clocking in system where you use your thumb or you use a card, they are based on time. So who came at 8 to 17? So you are going to have a situation where people religiously are coming. Even 7:50 if you start at 8, right? So 7:50 the guy clocks in, then they are there. In those days it was newspapers. Nowadays it's social media. They'll be there scrolling. Okay. So in terms of the actual work, they are not really working. Mm-hmm. So it is therefore important that there is focus on setting performance targets for the individuals, so that when the person is reporting, they know what exactly they should be working on. And when this is aligned, it means when the individual at that level, at their level, they achieve what they needed to achieve, definitely that adds into the department achieving what it needed to achieve. And that now feeds into the institution, the corporate goals being achieved. So that's how these things are linked. And so if you don't manage this process very well, you have a person who is constantly reporting. And some of them, they're very good. They'll be there, boss, they bring you even Angry Lion every morning. But productivity, nothing. And so it's important to understand it's not, a workplace is not a social place where it is about us coming, chatting, what else, the hot news. Yes, we are human beings, we are social beings. It's important that people have a life, but at the end of the day, what are they working towards? And if this process is not managed, as I've said, you end up with presentism instead of productivity. People will be there every day, you have huge numbers, yet this is not translating in the company achieving its goals. It is translating actually in you making more losses, because at the end of every month, you are paying people salaries. At the end of a certain period, you are paying them gratuity. For some institutions, they pay fuel, talk time, have medicals, and all these things that employers will spend on. So it's important that there's a big focus on productivity and ensuring that you are getting the best out of the employees.
Interesting. Yeah. So we can safely say planning is vital for any organization.
That's very true.
Sure. Maybe we can also talk about resource allocation and optimization. How does strategic planning help in this regard?
Yes, so one of the things that start to happen when you are making these strategies, for big companies, you actually hear about the annual budgeting. So what happens usually in the third quarter or the fourth quarter of the year, you hear about people going to make plans for the following year. So what happens is that when you as a business, you are sitting down and saying, okay, these are things we need to achieve, there will be a time when you sit down as an institution. And it's important that institutions take these things seriously, because as a business, there is need to evaluate and say, what is it that we were able to do this year? So like this year is 2023, as an example. What is it that, so by the time you're reaching, let's say, October or so, or even before that, you could be looking at the plans. What is it that you have done for this year according to what you needed to achieve as planned last year? Remember, we talked about the overall goals of the institution, and then you have you break it to the departmental plans. So now, in terms of resource allocation, every department will come up with a work plan. And it's important that these work plans, as we said, they are aligned to the overall goal of the institution. Remember, the overall goal will be like our ship that we are following, that is the true north where we are going. So each department then will start working out. So if you have marketing, what is it that they want to do in order for them to bring us more money? What business are they going to sell, or what service are we going to be doing? So there is a lot of thinking around the work plans. Now, in each one of those work plans, it has to be accompanied by a budget. Now, this usually happens at a higher level for bigger institutions or big businesses. But it should also happen even for the small and medium enterprises. You sit down, even if you have 3-4 people with you. Okay, how have we performed so far? And with what we have looked at. And sometimes companies even look at their performance 1 to 3 years ago to have some idea of where they're going. What were the things that made them to change or to be profitable or to start making losses and things of that nature. So at the time of resource allocation, you're now saying in the next year, what is it that we want to do? So you are now sitting down. That's why the planning comes in. You are saying next year, and in line with our strategy, we need to do 1, 2, 3, 4 things. Now, do we have the money? Okay, if we have the money as an institution, that is very fine. Okay, maybe you don't have the money. How are we going to raise the money? Where is the money coming from? So there is a lot of interrogation of the activities that the business or the institution wants to undertake versus the resources that they have. Do you have the money? Mm-hmm. And so you are then saying, for the things we want to do, how much money is being allocated, for instance, to labor? That is, say, your salaries, your benefits, your gratuities, and so on, your NAPSA contributions. How much money are we going to spend on this? The people that we have. How much money are we spending on vehicles, if you're buying vehicles? How much money is going on fuel or the trip? So there is now looking at what the business is going to be focusing on. There is an issue of, do we have some projects we are starting? How much money is being allocated for those projects? And where is this money coming from? And where is the money, when is the money actually coming? So for the businesses, it's important that there's focus on how everything will be done. How is the business going to get the funding? So that then you are now allocating the resources. Because if you don't allocate the resources, remember this affects performance. If you said this year we are going to build a new office, and you gave this assignment to a particular department, yet there is no money for it. In your performance targets for this section, you gave them the target, but then there is no money. So what happens? So you said now we are in mining, we need to be focusing on this section. We are going to go this east, west, you are in construction, or you are in manufacturing, you buy fertilizer, or you buy soya beans or maize or whatever it is that you do as a business. What resources are you going to have? And when are you going to have these resources? So it's important, and we are saying this because, especially for small businesses, sometimes there's a lot of use of emotions, and a lot of belief. It's a good thing for entrepreneurs, that spirit to start things. I always say, the entrepreneurial spirit to start and run with things, that belief, even believing for things which are not there, that's a very good one. But as your business starts, first year, second year, so you then need to start now looking at what resources am I actually having, so that as you plan, it's not those things we say at what pays at it pays. So it can't be, no, you have to now look at, as a business, where do you want to go, and what resources do you actually have, so that you also don't let your people to end up being frustrated. Because sometimes as a business or as the owner of the business, or even a CEO or a manager, you are there shouting at your people, hey, well, you need to do this. And when they start to do those things, then all of a sudden, no, we don't have money. But you could have sat down, thought everything through. Okay, colleagues, we don't have the funds for this. Maybe this whole project, let's put it on hold for now. Let's focus our energies in this direction, and that message goes to everybody in the team. In that way, the whole team is properly oiled, the whole machine, everybody starts to move in a particular direction, rather than allowing a situation where people spend so much energy, they have been running, making plans, and, no, we don't have money. So resource allocation in relation to planning and performance management, it becomes very, very important. Before we even start talking about the intricacies of how you set targets and so on, we are talking at a higher level in terms of what should an institution be thinking through, so that once you know what you can have, the resources you can have, it can guide you or help you to pick certain targets that are achievable. And sometimes when you see that in terms of even the resources, you are not going to have certain resources, you go back to the bosses. So if you are a bigger institution, for instance, you are going to have a board of directors, shareholders. Mm-hmm. So as management, you put together a paper and say, okay, these are the things we are seeing. But usually there's those quarterly reports that are done every 3 months. So it can also help you to show that we were expecting to make X amount of money, but because of X, Y, Z, these monies are not coming in. Maybe it will not even come this year. So you start now making those changes, so that as you allocate your resources, but the major time really for making those plans is, for instance, even some months before the year ends in some companies. Other companies, they wait until the year finishes. So it depends on on the calendar, but it is very important that at some point there is some discussion around how you allocate the resources, so that once you tell a particular department or a particular individual that your job is to do this year, and they have been given the resources, if the person cannot get the job done, I think we have talked about that issue. Mm-hmm. There will be a nice talking, and sometimes charges are raised, or maybe it's an issue of training that they just need some maybe further training to get the job done. But if it is an attitude issue, or they just don't want to get the job done, then at that point you should have very different conversations leading to a proper separation.
This is indeed a hot topic.
It is.
Mr. Kabanda, you being a management expert for over 15 years, can you shed more light on how strategic planning impacts employee engagement and motivation?
Yeah, so one of the things that you have to understand, like I've actually been mentioning, so remember that human beings are people are human beings. The employees are human beings. Mm-hmm. They have thoughts and feelings, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, them having thoughts and feelings, human beings are very, very different from your machines. A machine, when you don't want to use the vehicle or tractor or this big machine, just switch it off, okay? Yeah. If you need to service it, just go and service it. It doesn't have thoughts and feelings. Now, because machines don't have thoughts and even computers, when you're done, you just close it, shut down. Of course, with care. But with the human beings, who are in this case your employees, it's very, very important that the institution or the business or the employer takes these things into consideration. When the employer does not give direction in terms of where they want to go, this actually becomes very frustrating for the employees. Because remember, when the person is waking up every day, they are thinking that they are going to apply themselves and get things done. There is that excitement genuinely from the employee. Genuinely. But when now the employee over time finds that the things that they want to do, they cannot do it, and there is no proper communication why certain things can't be done, it starts to affect the employee. Remember, like we said, employees have thoughts and feelings. When the person does not feel that they are, or does not think that they are being supported, or their effort is really not adding to anything, that now becomes quite frustrating. So if you want to get the best out of the employees, it's important that, first of all, like we have said, make your plans, so that the person knows that, okay, the things I'm doing now, I'm supposed to achieve this by the end of the year, or by the end of the first quarter, or by the end of the month or week. When people know what they should be working towards, then that gives them a reason to wake up every day and go and do the work. Okay. Also, what that means in terms of performance management, it means you have given them the specific targets. So that becomes very clear. As they work, you have also, remember we talked about resource allocation, you have also given them the resources they need. If they need to use a computer, give them. If they need to use a particular machine, give them. If they need whatever it is that the employee needs, make it available. In that way, the person wakes up and they are applying themselves. And when it comes to even issues of how the person is working in this, in line with those goals that you set, the person, when they are achieving those goals, it really motivates them. What that means also is that from the employer's perspective, that means the supervisors, the managers, and so on, they need to be monitoring the work of the employee, encouraging the employees, so that the employee is put in a space where they are working towards the achievement of something. That, as I mentioned, it really helps to motivate the employee. They wake up knowing that they are working towards a bigger thing. And that goes across every department and with every individual. Whenever a person reaches a point where they can't see where they are going, they are in a space where they are working, but they can't see it. They don't know how what they're doing is contributing to anything. Remember that if you give a person a reason, that helps them. You can be a cleaner, just somebody cleaning toilets. It looks like that is nothing. But that work that the cleaner is doing is helping everybody else to work in an environment that is clean. Then you can be there in your computers, in your nice offices, because somebody was cleaning the offices, the toilets, and the kitchens. So that person needs to see how they're contributing towards the bigger goal. Wow. The person can be a security guard. Even them, they're contributing. You are working there because your properties are there. If those things are stolen, then you don't have what to use. So every individual needs to see that the work that they're doing is adding value to the institution. And that's why even for managers, for instance, in many cases when they are being trained, one of the things that is emphasized is how they make sure that every employee that is working with them, every employee needs to feel that they are valued, every employee needs to feel appreciated, because once a person feels that they are appreciated, then they start applying themselves more. Then there's less of even issues around the complaints. Sometimes people talk about payment. Yes, the payment is a very important component whenever people are waking up and going for work. But sometimes it's the environment. So issues around motivation, when the environment does not allow the person to see what exactly the value they are bringing to the institution, it becomes less motivating, and usually they will do works, they will do mistakes, and that again escalates matters, because at that point now even managers and supervisors want to charge them even for things that they have not done properly. So that's the importance of making sure that performance management is aligned to the plans, and the employees actually know what they are working towards.
Well explained. Now, Mr. Kabanda, how does a strategic planning promote a collaborative culture, and how does it impact performance management?
So when you look at the strategic planning process itself, which we talked about, if the departments sit down, so, and this is a requirement actually. If you are coming up with a strategic plan, which for instance is for 3, 4, 5 years, there will be need for collaboration. Each department should be there, should be represented, because at the end of the day, you want to make sure that what is sitting in that document is speaking properly to what you do in your department, and how you are going to each contribute towards the achievement of the overall goals of the institution. Now, like we mentioned, you have that long-term plan, but you're also having the annual work plans. So in the annual work plans, again, there has to be some level of collaboration. Everybody within the institution should sit down and look at what is it that we're doing as a department, and how does this affect the other departments. Okay, I know there are all these things where you have the core business. So I'll give an example again of construction. The guys who are actually on the road doing the construction, that's like a core business of that construction company as an example. Now, what they are doing there will be affected by the support, the so-called support or non-technical or non-core departments. So what they are doing that side will be affected in the sense that if there is no collaboration, when you are running on the road, you're making the road, yet there is no collaboration with procurement. The guys who need to bring your bitumen, they are going to delay. So when that happens, the issue is now the bitumen will delay, everything else delays. If for instance, the institutions that are actually operating for public institutions, for instance, there's all these processes that have to be done when you're procuring things through the public procurement processes. So you then need to be in a space where, as you are making the plans, they are synchronized with your procurement department. As you make the plans, they are also synchronized with your HR department. So when do you need these people? For instance, if you're going to need some engineers or you're going to need some people in operations, when do you actually need them? We have mentioned this before. It is important that there's that collaboration because without proper collaboration, each department will be doing what it wants to do. And they will be saying, well, from our end, we did our job. Procurement will procure the materials depending on your business, if you're a big business, for instance. But then when is this material coming? It's coming at a time that it is of no use. The time has passed. Or the material comes very, very early. Or the contract. So there's need, when is procurement doing its job? When is HR doing its job? If you bring people early, like we have mentioned, you are putting them on the payroll and they're starting to get paid for doing nothing. You bring the people late, the work for which you really wanted them has already passed. So, or you needed to deliver to a customer certain things. Marketing itself, when did it need to do the particular advertisement? So if you're going to have a certain event, for instance, depending on your business, you're going to do an event in December, and you needed to start looking for sponsors now, yet you're waiting until December. Now everybody's, you can't even breathe. No, we are behind schedule. Where was your planning? So if there is no proper planning and coordination, every section needs to coordinate with the other section for you as a business to actually achieve what you have planned. And that's why even before people sign the performance targets, there's need to check and see that the timelines that are sitting this side are supported or are in line with the timelines that are sitting on this other department side. And that's why there is need for that talking. So if you're in an institution, and sometimes this happens in big institutions, there's this director of this or chief of this and that, and they are not speaking to each other. Sometimes it's even in a small institution. You just have 2 or 3 managers there and they can't even speak to each other. Some of them, they even send the junior, you go and talk to him. What is that? Sure. Because at the end of the day, there is no collaboration. And each one will come and say at the end of the day, no, me, like I did my work plans, I worked on this, so I should be given what is due to me because I achieved my target. But those targets you're busy ticking. How do they synchronize with every other department? So it's important that these things are done in a manner that there's collaboration, all the sections, finance, operations, production, distribution, depending on your business and what exactly the institution does, so that everything is synchronized and the whole machine works as one.
Well elaborated, Mr. Kabanda. Seems our time is not with us, but before we go, please kindly just summarize the importance of strategic planning and performance management in the workplace.
Yeah, so definitely, as we have said, we are basically looking at a higher level in terms of how planning should be done. So again, if you are a big institution, that institution needs to sit down and look at what it is that it needs to achieve. And again, it's important to understand that the plans are not cast in concrete. There are times when you made all your nice plans, year one will do this, year two will do this, and something along the way could happen, which drastically changes even what you planned. For instance, we had the COVID that came in, and the plans that were put in place, definitely you could no longer go with that. Sometimes there's just change in the environment, certain laws maybe get to be passed. Sometimes a lot of other things could change. So as a business, it's important to understand that the planning part is very critical. Even like we talk about the big businesses, we are mentioning them like this, even the smaller ones. There is need as a business to sit down and look at where you want to go, what kind of competition are you expecting, how do you now start to make sure that you are aligning every section that you have. And again, these are things that you can get help with from consultants if you can't do them in-house, so that you then make sure that what you are doing, it is actually profitable rather than being so busy. Because some institutions, they will try to equate being busy with productivity. These are two very different things. You can be busy jumping up and down, carrying files every day, but what exactly are you doing? And whatever you are doing, it is adding to what value? It's adding to what objective? So by virtue of just people being busy, it does not mean that they are being productive. That's why it's important that you are planning properly, and then you are now sitting down to manage the performance of each individual, so that everybody's job in a company is aligned, and you should then also be in a space as an institution where you should reward good performance. It's important that you create a culture where when people are achieving targets which you set, you actually reward them. It could be through money itself, or the bonuses or incentives. Sometimes it's not salary increments, or whatever it is that you have in your place. Sometimes it's non-monetary things. Maybe the company will send you some vacation. Whatever it is that the institution does, it's important that there is a culture created that shows that if you actually perform in this institution, you will get to stay and you get X amount of things. If you don't perform, this is also what will happen. You cannot be in a space where a person doesn't perform, and now you know because they know me, the bossy, or they are related to that one, so it's okay until wakafike retirement for those companies that have retirements. No, it cannot be like that. If somebody cannot perform and you have done everything that you could do, you have tried to take them for further training, and yet they do not want to improve, maybe you are dealing with an attitude issue where somebody just doesn't want. Because if it's a capacity issue, you could help them with sending them for further training. And it's important, that's why planning and training also becomes critical. For the skills that are needed, the knowledge that is needed, you take your people to undergo those trainings so that they can now perform well, and those are synchronized. If they cannot, and it's just an attitude issue where they don't want to apply themselves, you should show them the door.
Mr. Kabanda, before you give us your last remarks, maybe you can read 2 or 3 text messages sent from our viewers. This one reads, "Hello, Chikoma texting you from Kanyama. I work in a cyber guard for 3 years, now without NAPSA, no increment of salaries, no gratuities, and no off days. How can you assist me? Good afternoon." And this one reads, "We are watching the program, sir. What if the company did not follow labor law? How can you help us?" Without a name, please, when sending your text messages, please do indicate your names and where you're sending us those text messages from. Good morning. I'm enjoying the program. It's very important. Good afternoon. Good afternoon and good morning, everything. Wow.
Very important.
Very important. This one reads, "The president directed all companies to increase salaries for workers. When is the deadline?" Important question. Well, the laws articulated by the GACE are not enforced by relevant authority, and it seems like mere rhetoric to talk about issues like minimum wage, which has never been implemented. Victor Chisela from Luansha. Thank you, Victor, for this text message. I think these are the only text messages that we can read now because we're running out of time. Maybe you can also give us your last remarks.
Okay, so maybe just as an overview, for all those that have sent in the messages, we will still compile them and give to Labour Office. But also we need to emphasize, wherever you are watching us from, when the people have issues, compile your documents and everything. Go to the Labour Office near you. That's why they are there. They show them what exactly it is that you signed, the kind of contracts you have, the amount of salaries that have been given, so that they can then look into those documents and see what is actually prevailing. So otherwise, if certain things are not brought to the attention of relevant authorities, then it's difficult for people to be assisted. So that I thought we should emphasize. Otherwise, to all those that have been following us and giving us feedback, those who have been calling, and those who have been actually even joining us on our social media platforms, we just want to say we greatly appreciate. And just look for Owen Kabanda on all social media platforms, on LinkedIn, on TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook.
Thank you.
Thank you
for coming through.
Thank you.
Well, this has been Labour Matters on KBN TV, channel 279 DSTV, 27 Go TV 102 Topstar, and we were streaming live on our Facebook page, which is KBN TV. If you've just joined us, please go on our Facebook page, which is KBN TV. You will find this live program on our Facebook page. You don't have to miss anything. You can also find our other episodes of Labour Matters on our Facebook page, which is KBN TV. I have been your host, Patricia Chilembiko, and today we looked at an interesting topic. Looking forward to next Sunday, and I believe we're going to have an interesting topic as well.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. See you next week, same time, same place.